reasoning. In other words, help learners to activate their critical thinking while having in front of them problem situations that are relevant to their needs. Adopt curriculum to address students' positions and development. In other words, adopt curriculum so that students find out the possibility to make hypotheses. And by making hypotheses, they try to find out alternatives, solutions, because the most important thing here is no more the right answer. In grammar, it is the right answer. When we are within the linguistic competence, it is the right answer. We search for the right answer. When we enter the communicative competence, we enter the appropriate answer because culture is there. And depending on the basis of culture, we may understand a variety of things. So adopt curriculum to address students' positions so that they make hypotheses. And I am the guest. I need 1 more minute. A big minute. A big minute, not a small minute. Thank you very much. My friend will be the guest tomorrow. Don't forget him. Pupils in this college, in the secondary school, students at the level of the university, they should know to observe. Once they have observed, they think and interpret. Once they have interpreted, they make hypotheses. Once they have made the hypothesis, they share with their friends, with their classmates, Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. And then they come with answers. And the answers can be different from one student to another, one group of students to another, because we are no more situated in the context of grammar. We are situated in the context of ideas. And assess students' learning in the context of teaching. You should assess in the same way you taught. Inverted commas, because we don't teach, they learn. Okay? From time to time we teach, you know, because we, 30 years of teaching, and then one day they come and say, don't teach, they learn, and you leave them learn. Okay, so, now, which competencies should they need? As I said, 4 types of competencies. Why these competencies? Let me find out my notes. Maybe the teacher can be lost from time to time. Okay, let's say it from memory. So, the communicative competence, because if you have not communicative competence, you cannot communicate appropriately. Okay? Intellectual competence. When I said you observe, you interpret, you make the hypothesis, you find out the alternative. It is intellectual. You use your critical thinking to help get to the right alternative. And the methodological competency in order to find out the right strategies to use in the classroom, the right plan to follow, and the social and personal competency, because you are dealing with values, you are dealing with identities, with culture. So you your identity. And you construct your identity through the big holes you are provided with by the teacher. In other words, awareness to lifestyles all over the world. You live in Morocco. I live in Algeria. We share a lot of cultural values, but we have some cultural values that are different. In the same country, the regions have specific values. But you live in a country, you are one people, we are one people. The world is one people. We have to create opportunities for learners to learn to tolerate the other. It is not because you are different that I am the best. We are just different. I understand your difference, you should understand mine. So awareness to lifestyles, awareness to the media, how the media work, awareness to the preservation of nature, and so on. All this is done through the interdisciplinary holes. It's no more المبتدأ والخبر. كاين المبتدأ والخبر. ما هو دخل الهول. We don't learn grammar for the sake of grammar. Grammar becomes then a means to an end. And you can take 5 minutes doing grammar during the session. You can practice grammar during the session because grammar is a tool to express ideas. But after that, you have to use this tool to express ideas, to let your learners express their ideas. But the problem is that the shift is difficult, because it is really difficult. Even though we can do it, the teacher loses his authority. Do you know anybody who can lose his authority without reward? Without something else? Once more. Okay? So it is difficult to lose authority. He was the one who knows everything, the one who directs everything, the one who plans everything, the one who says, you speak, and you shut it up. And suddenly he becomes one among the whole. It's difficult to make the shift. I have still a lot to say, but because I am a man of the people, I stop it here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dean Amzian. And if I want to summarize your talk, it simply, I can reduce it to CBI is calculate before implementation. And in our traditional way here in Morocco, we say مية تخميمة وتخميمة ولا ضربة بالمقص. That's it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Our next speaker is Ramil Jalila. He is Professor Samir Diouni, and he is going to talk about how to enhance quality through reflective teaching. The floor is yours, Samir. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So let me give you an idea about what I'm going to talk about. So this is for critical reflection, self-inquiry, evaluation, and change. So why reflecting? I think there are many reasons why, but I think this is very important, is to have a deep understanding of teaching. So teachers would feel more confident in trying different options or alternatives and assessing their effects on teaching. That's one way. Or they can discover that there is a gap between what they teach and what their learners learn. So hence the need for reflective teaching. So what does it involve? Well, of course, the event itself, that is the course of the lesson, recollection of the event, teacher objectively observes and examines what happened in the classroom, responding to the event in the way that there are a number of questions that needs to be addressed. So were the objectives of the session met, or the course met, if you want, why not? What worked well, what didn't, and why? And did students act as expected in terms of their engagement, participation? Why not? So these are some of the questions. How can class sessions be improved to provide chances for better learning? And you get all that information to evaluate, to take decisions, to improve and act and change. So that's in general. So how is it effective? I think Professor Wadim this morning mentioned a number of things. And of course, peer observation, this is one of them. Keeping a journal, writing in a journal. Video recording of a lesson. Portfolio, which was mentioned. Student feedback, and this is my focus in this presentation. Seminars, workshops, conferences, and one example was mentioned this morning is about MATE, I think, which has been influential. It has had positive impacts on teachers and teacher learning. And of course, 360% process. It is a new approach in management where not only students are involved, but administrators, faculty, and everybody in the school involved in the, if you want, in the evaluation of the teaching process. So the study. Now the rationale behind this study. So are we reflecting on our teaching? How much do we reflect? Are we reflective teachers? I mean, to my knowledge, at the university, except at the Faculty of Medicine, with very few exceptions, I have never seen a teacher giving an evaluation sheet at the end of the course or the semester, telling the students what did work, what didn't work. Very, very few, except at the Faculty of Medicine. Very few teachers do it, and online courses too. Teachers who are involved in distant learning, they do it most of the time because they want to improve the process. So, in other countries, it is obligatory. Whether it's an undergrad program or graduate education, I think in Europe, in the United States, in Australia, I think in Morocco, it's not. And even in terms of research, I think little progress has been done in the field of teacher assessment, whether in the area of academic studies or research. I know that in secondary schools, I know that inspectors, but not a lot of research has been done when it comes to higher education. So hence the need for this study. So what are the aims? Is to examine how students, undergrad students and master students perceive English departments, perceive certain teaching quality characteristics. And they have to rank these teacher and course characteristics using the 5 scale in terms of importance. The most important and the last one is the least important. So about 41 students took part in this study. We have 14 males and 24 females, aged between 20 and 43, not 40. The male is 22.66. Materials, questionnaire, online and in class, and this is, we did it for the purpose of response rate, because I think with Professor, I think this morning, Nadia Halim, I think you mentioned you had, I can't remember, about 30 students, and the response rate was 50%, I think because it was done online. I did it online, and at the same time I did it in class with my students. And I have to tell you this fact. Immediately after I have given them their grades, some of them were terrible and were bad. But you are going to see the results. So the questionnaire is valid because it was already published in 3 papers. So peer-reviewed articles. So the questionnaire has validity, if you want to say. So the procedure was easy. So I talked about the level of importance regarding several characteristics of good teachers. So you have teacher assessment, 3 categories: teacher expertise or competence in the area, teaching competence, and personal qualities. Then it's about the course assessment itself in terms of content, in terms of course organization and objectives. So, and of course, the purpose of the evaluation was clearly explained to students. This is what I want you to do. Is it clear for you? Go ahead. So, and of course, the results are like this. In terms of importance, of course, first, teacher expertise, we had 3 elements. So the first element, they believe that a good teacher should give good examples and exercises. Then in terms of importance, shows good knowledge. And the last one, in terms of importance, is answering questions in an expert way. Second, teacher competence. And of course it has 6 features. The most important one is teaches course content clearly and self-explanatory. Then you have clearly defines as a second, in terms of importance, course goals and students' duties. And of course this is contained in the course description, where all the elements are laid out. And of course the last item is a teacher who would raise the question by the use of modern technology. And of course here, I think Professor Bouziane mentioned this, it's not the use of a data show. Okay, here they're talking about the use of data show. It's not the use of Moodle or platform. Okay, so those technicalities that sometimes we have to report to. Personal qualities of a teacher. And I think this morning it was stressed, respect. And I think this is the first element that comes in terms of importance. A teacher should regard his students or her students properly and respectfully, should be motivated for work and consciously feels his or her obligations as the next important point, and should be available for conseil. It's not that important, but the last one, this is not, should be punctual, was not important for students, okay? And even organization of courses, the lecture, whether it's organized or not, it was not important. What was important is the content is clear. We're going to see this. Slide number 4, course content. So the course should give insight into problems and enables its understanding. Course show the importance of subjects and application possibilities. And the last one, quantity of course contents, much number of course lecture hours was not important. And I think one of the students this morning mentioned this point of how many hours do we teach? Do we exactly teach 40 hours when we have 3 hours slot? Do we teach 30 hours when you have, I think, 2 hours slot? Do we have this? It's a problem. There are strikes, there are breaks, etc. Okay. Next. Okay, course organization. How the course is organized. It goes back to the course descriptions or goals. The course goals and student duty are clearly defined. They are clearly stated. This is what I'm going to do, and the learning outcomes are this. This is what I expect you to do. The assessment. Week number 1, this is what you are going to do. Week number 5, midterm test or test. And then, so the student has a clear idea of the course. Lectures were properly followed by exercises and seminars is very important too. And the last one is course encourages student active participation. So you have these three elements. Next, general comments. So I leave a blank for students to fill. So to give them the chance to say what they think a good teacher looks like. And of course, these are the results. React positively to students' comments, number one. They are not, in terms of importance, I put them like this. I didn't have a chance to do it. Gives them opportunity to express themselves, active participation. Treats them with respect. Evaluate students objectively, because they believe that sometimes grades are biased. Provide constructive input. Feedback, very important, on students' work and follow-up activities. Should be kind of. And of course, not the last one, I said it's not in terms of importance, I'm just putting the point. Create a good working environment for learning. Next, they have to do with professional, first one were personal qualities, these are professional qualities. Collaborate with colleagues. In one of the students, and I think he was a student teacher, I can say that, collaborates with his colleagues or reduces anxiety in the class. It means relaxing atmosphere, increases students' motivation, engages students in the learning process, promotes students' autonomy. So, believes in his students' ability to do things. And the last one, takes into account the affective side of students. So all these, I think, would give us an idea about what the students think of good teaching. And of course, last list, helpful, should be outgoing, patient, emphatic, humorous, has a sense of humor, patient and motivating and interested in what he or she does. Okay? So, again, they are not ranked in terms of importance. They are there just to. So, summary. So, this research shows that students give more importance to what is theoretical. It is not enough to get an idea about students' perception of quality teaching. I think implementation of improvements and feedback on actions taken to improve quality of teaching to all participants in the educational processes or process are necessary. It's a good idea to have an idea, but you need to take action to implement, to improve the quality of teaching. So in other words, we want a reflective approach to teaching which takes into account students' needs. That's the first one. It's based on a reflection of what happens in the classroom and on how students react to what they are taught. It is not based on books or dictated or guided by books, but rather by the goals and objectives that of the course of the lessons that we have students to learn. It should involve changes in the way we usually perceive teaching and our role in the process of teaching. And I think it is a very interesting tool for self-evaluation, inquiry, and professional growth. I think I'm going to stop this is the last slide, I promise. So, reflection are key components of teacher development and central for continued professional growth. The skills of critical reflection can help teachers move beyond the level guided largely by impact, intuition, or routine, the movement away from the how to the why and of what questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Samir. Thank you. Thank you for having brought the students' voice here, and I'm sure that many students here would like you and would like what you have just said, because they say, yes, that's what we are asking them to do. All right, our last speaker, but not least, he is Hisham Shad, and he's from Canberra, not a long way from Al Jadida. You are neighbors? I know very little about geography, you know. So, and you are doing, he is going to talk about reflective teaching and the encouragement.
My presentation will be about reflective teaching and the encouragement perspective, the role, beliefs, and values of the teachers. Okay, and the outline will be this. Okay, the first point I will talk about reflective teaching and the teacher's beliefs and values. The second point is the sources of the teacher's beliefs. And the third point is the different roles of the teachers and the role of an encourager or encourager. And the fourth point is the encouragement perspective and self-evaluation. And the fifth point is the pedagogical implications and future research to develop the encouragement perspective or encouragement method. Okay? So first I will talk about reflective teaching and the teacher's beliefs and values. So here I will talk about the guidelines, and I will start with the guidelines of the high schools, about high teaching English at high schools, and in MEN it means the Ministry of Education. Okay, national. Talk about the Ministry of Education, National Education. So it says, so it talks about accountability. So here we talk about self-evaluation, self-reflection, or what is called reflective teaching. We can talk about the notion of self-accountability as one of the key elements. Because when we talk about accountability, we can talk about different types of accountability, okay? And here the focus is on the self-accountability or self-reflection. Okay, we'll go now to the sources of the teacher's beliefs. And here we'll go to, we'll quote from Richards and Lockhart, 1996, who have argued that teachers' belief systems are founded on the goals, values, and beliefs teachers hold in relation to the content and process of teaching and their understanding of the system in which they work and their roles within it. Okay, so here we'll go into details in the following quotation, and as we see, there are different sources or factors that affect the belief system or the beliefs of the teacher. So we can talk about the different factors. So one of the factors that influences the teacher's belief or the teacher's way of teaching, we can talk about the teacher's own experience as long learners. So here the teachers value or they or appreciate the best experiences that they have learned, or the best experiences or the best practices of their ex-teachers. So the second factor is the experience through practicing. Okay, and here they select the best practices that that they see works best and can be more effective. And we can talk also about the institutional practice. And here institutional practice is related with the what is called also the established practice. Here we talk about the effect of the environment or the institution. Okay, and the other point is the personal preferences. So here most of the teachers, okay, they try to adopt in the classroom their preferred techniques and strategies. Okay, and also we can talk about the research or educational related or the research-based principles. And here we talk about the effect of the readings or the effects of other sciences that the teachers read about, and they try to apply or implement those principles and techniques during the process of teaching and learning. And also we can talk about the last point, which is the principle derived from an approach or a method. And here we talk about the effects of a certain approach or method. Okay, so we can say that an approach or a method dictates to the teacher certain techniques or certain strategies that he can follow. Okay. So here we'll talk about we'll go to the different roles of the teacher and the role of an encourager or encourager. So here Richard will go back again to Richard and Lockhart, 1996, who have classified the roles of teachers into 3 macro categories or 3 big groups. So we can talk about the first group, which is the roles that reflect institutional factors. And here we talk about the effect of the establishment. Okay, and the roles then, the second category is the roles that mirror a teaching approach or a method. And here, as we see, there is a similarity between the beliefs and the roles. Okay, there is a kind of interactions. Okay, we talk about beliefs. So the roles, the beliefs are reflected or are acted through the roles that the teachers play or act. And the third category or group is the roles that reveal a personal view of teaching, and here we can go to the belief of what is called the preferred technique or strategy, as we have talked before. Okay, we'll focus more on the encouragement perspective and self-evaluation. And here we go back to the role of motivator, and we'll focus on Richards and Lockhart. These 2 experts are considered 2 of the most important or influential pioneers in the field of reflective teaching and professional development. So we can read the definition about of the role of motivator. So the teacher seeks to improve students' confidence and interest in learning and to build a classroom climate that will motivate students. So here in our study or in our paper, we try to suggest another role, which is encourager, and why choosing this role instead, or we try to improve or to develop the role of motivator, because when you talk about motivation, most of the time motivation, as we have studied in the CPR or INES or through our learning or our training career, we find that motivation is most of the time related to psychology, or we talk about most of the time about psychological aspects. And we think that the word encourager will be more global, and we can improve it. We can improve the first role through using the second. Okay, and we can say that the encourager includes many sub-roles that a teacher can play. Okay, so the encourager is able to do these tasks, promoting the level of the learners, helping and supporting the learners at different educational and linguistic levels, instilling confidence and courage within them, arousing them for action, waking them from weakness or depression into power, making them active, etc. So as we see, there are many sub-roles that a teacher can play, and as we see, there are most if not all of these roles are positive and productive, okay? Okay, we go to the pedagogical implications and future research. There is a mistake there. So we can talk about, so here we like so that the next or the future students and the researchers to develop this, or to do or to perform or to conduct many research papers about the topic of encouragement or the encouragement method instead of motivational approach or motivation approach. Okay, we talk about motivation, we talk about just principles, but we talk about the method, we talk about practicalities, we talk about the techniques, and we talk about the what is practical and applicable. Here I have talked about, I have linked the research for the future research with the encouragement method. So here, these are some of the questions that that respect the encouragement method, and these are some, not all. And these questions a teacher can ask after teaching a lesson or a lesson. So the first question, have I used an encouraging or a discouraging tone? And here what is important is to use encouraging tone or encouraging discourse or feedback. Have I selected the appropriate feedback to encourage the learners? This is another question which is related to the encouragement method, and which is a key question. Okay, the third question is, have I focused more on the positive feedback and reformulated the negative one, or the negative one, it means the feedback, in the form of suggestions. So here the focus on the positive and the suggestions instead of focusing more on the negative and letting the learner fall into confusion. And the fourth point, or the first question, is have I chosen the appropriate the activities that are gradually difficult? Okay? Here we talk about, we go from what is simple to what is difficult. And to repeat again, okay, the last point, to repeat again, I'd like our teachers and the researchers to have a seminar or a conference about the encouragement method one day in the future. And we can highlight more and more. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, now the tough job now. But before I do that, can I take, because Hisham has saved us something like 2 minutes, and then we'll just use 1 minute to summarize everything. So, not a minute, just 30 seconds. It's these, our 4 speakers, I was just imagining that you have a kind of a dialogue among them. And Dr. Amzian says, you cannot make teachers go beyond their zones of comfort without adequate preparation. Adil totally agrees, because he calls for including critical thinking in the curriculum, but stipulates its success with teacher training. Samir says, listen to your students, they know what's good for them. Hisham reiterates, I agree with all of you, but look into things from a psychic perspective. Please praise teachers for good achievements so that these teachers will praise and empower students. That's the dialogue that thank you. Okay, now
you're on the record. So stand up.
Oh,
all right, there we go. Let me just do it right. So, I was saying I have a few questions to ask to the different speakers out there.
We'll ask just only 2 questions if you don't mind. 2. You have the floor.
So my first question is addressed to Sadi out there, who talked about critical thinking. And I think that in talking about critical thinking, you make it sound that whenever we have this kind of language teaching, it should involve the development or the teaching of critical thinking. To just wondering, are you saying this about adult learners, or should it be different for an adult learner? I don't know. That's like one question. I have maybe questions again for Professor Ramzi. Things which I probably did not understand, and things which I would like you to elaborate on. And it's like two things. You made two statements which I did not really understand. You said you teach the way you were taught. Do you mean that we do this? Or I don't know. We're living in an evolving world. What maybe I don't know. My ancestors know is different from what I know, and I cannot teach them the same way. I guess. So you made this statement, and you should also make that statement nearly the same thing about assessing. And then at one point you were talking about difficulties encountered by I don't know, the teaching learning operation. And my question is, don't you think that this has to do with a certain kind of confusion, if you can call it so, a confusion between what would be called an educational system as opposed to a pedagogical paradigm? There is a difference between them, I guess. That's one. And I have one question for Samir out there. You talked about ranking of a certain point. You talked about ranking, and you gave us that this ranking in that order that you gave. I think it was like in table 7, table 5 or 6. And my question is, well, what did you do to neutralize the effect of the type, nature of the course and its influence on the ranking? I mean, what have you done out there? One final question for everyone.
For me?
For everyone, and for you as well.
Okay, thank you.
I have a
Go
problem.
ahead. If it's for me, just go ahead.
I have a problem. I had this opportunity last Monday of being present somewhere where I learned about some statistics. We have today, I don't know, the whole day today, we have lectures of people talking about drawing, in some sense, a very bright picture of how things are going about this teacher development. We know what we're doing, we're working on it, we're doing reflective teaching, we do a lot of things. But I have a problem related to statistics. Last Monday, I mean, I you could call it the facts about it. I learned 3 things. I'll share with you just the 3 things. I was at a point in the event where we learned this kind of thinking. In Morocco in 2013, we had only 253 publications. When in Iran, there were about 26,000 publications. What is our research? In Morocco, in faculties of arts and humanities, it is, I think it's statistics of 2013. Out of every 100 students enrolled in a license program, be it English or non-English, only 12 get their license in 3 years.
In 6 semesters, yes. 14%.
Only 12 out of 100. Among the students enrolled for a license in Moroccan universities, again, it is said that is way less than a third get their license at all. Could you help? Thank you.
Thank you. That's the question. Can we help?
I'd like to thank Dr. Laris for organizing such an event. My question will be, of course, addressed to Mr. Adil, who talked about critical thinking. So we know that critical thinking is listed as a priority in schools, institutions, departments, and so on. And we know that there are some classroom activities that can be used, or that can teachers use to teach critical thinking, including ask and answer questions, or reading comprehension questions, or analyzing arguments and policy. So my question would be, how can EPL teachers assess or vet students' critical thinking? And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much for your fruitful presentations. It was very informative. My question is to first presenter. He was talking about critical thinking. Mr. Ali, we know that students even at university level cannot agree or disagree with the teacher. So how can we achieve critical thinking among E-level learners at high school? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Question
Are
please.
directed to Professor Juni. To Professor Juni. So the first question is, what does a teacher need to be successful in his profession? And how can we enhance and improve our Moroccan teaching delivery to build leaders, not followers? Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was one.
What are the implications of critical thinking on ALT program, particularly in our Moroccan context? The other question, another question, does the Moroccan education system really help in promoting students' critical thinking skills? Because according to my experience, a large number of teachers still spoon feed their students, and this is the bitter reality. Thanks.
Insightful ideas, that's reflective ideas that attracted our attention to ask such questions. First of all, Mr. Thank you so much, to drawing our attention that we cannot have reflective teachers without having reflective learners, that is to take learners at the center of learning, of the learning process. My question is, believing that or how could we make such compromise or balance between having autonomous, independent learners who are the center of the process of learning and reflective teachers, that is, or which one should we start with, whether reflective learners or reflective teachers? And thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's about the feasibility of teaching critical thinking to children, basically, right? Actually, most of the literature on critical thinking conceptualize the teaching for critical thinking as appropriate for adult learners. However,
That's fine. Go ahead. That's fine.
Yeah. Because there is the assumption that at a certain age, the learners are capable of dealing with higher order critical thinking skills. However, this does not deny the fact that we can teach the kids certain primary thinking skills, not necessarily higher order thinking skills, but at least you can teach them certain tendencies or rather certain habits of not accepting anything at face value, always asking questions, rather than asking questions about what, asking questions about how, about why. I think that this is feasible and is possible in the context of teaching kids critical thinking. Concerning the question, I guess, by Sidi Abdelrahim about the assessment of critical thinking skills. Now there are a number of international standardized tests for the testing, assessment and evaluation of critical thinking skills. They are very standardized and they are used in a very wide range of institutions to check the development of their students' critical thinking skills. Of course, a standardized test is based on first of all, an identification of a number of soft skills, and then translating those soft skills into either rating questions or either different types of questions and skills that can be answered by students, then used as a way of measuring the development of critical thinking skills. Concerning the question of one about engaging or the incorporation of critical thinking at the faculty level, and he said that from his own experience, he found that it's difficult to agree on something. But actually, the teaching of critical thinking is not about agreeing, but rather about allowing the students to disagree. Okay? It's not always whatever the teacher says is correct. Okay? It's rather the teaching of an attitude, of a habit. Okay? Not about reaching a certain consensus or getting all the students in the class to agree on just one thing. Okay? It's about certain skills that are procedural in nature, are used by learners to learn. Okay, so we have habits, tendencies, and also attitudes, positive attitudes. Right.
That was it. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you for your answers. Dean Hamzian, could you please go ahead with the reactions to the questions addressed to you?
Yeah, 3 questions. So I have 3 questions. Question 1, you do not understand the you teach the way we teach the way we were taught. I think that if we go back to the 60s or the 70s, we implemented the GTM, the grammar translation methodology. And then we shifted to the behaviorist methodology, the oral approach. And then we experienced the communicative approach. This is how the methodologies came one after the other. We were taught, according to these methodologies, to these approaches, and all these approaches were and are still teacher-centered. So we were taught within teacher-centeredness. And if we are taught within teacher-centeredness, we teach within teacher-centeredness. Of course, we don't stay within this methodology because we are human beings. We evolve within a setting, a context, teaching context. We meet colleagues, we read, so within a certain period of time, we bring some changes to our methodology, but we remain the center of the pedagogical activity, even though we try to make learners be more involved than we were once we were students, or once we were, the moment we were pupils. Okay, this is what I try to explain, and this is not from me. It's something which is universally known. Now, you speak about the pedagogical system and educational paradigm. I'm coming back to the definition of a method and the death of a method. And our colleague said that the method doesn't die. There is no good and bad method. Indeed, there is no good and bad method. There is an appropriate
or non-appropriate method according to the objectives set by the teacher or by the educational authorities. If I want my pupils, my students, to speak fluently, I necessarily opt for the communicative approach. I cannot opt for the oral approach or the GTM, especially the GTM, which is more concerned with literary texts, translation from the target language to the language of the learner to speak fluently. So I have to choose the right method. But of course, methods are not static. They are dynamic. We can bring a personal touch, but it remains this methodology. Now, compromise between learner and teacher, students learning, I wanted to say that when the teacher is not associated with the how to say the design of the curriculum. Imagine teachers are associated with the design of the curriculum design. They know exactly what competencies they have to develop in their learners. Once they know the type of competencies they have to develop in terms of content, in terms of cognition and metacognition, in terms of value construction, they will know the way to adopt in order to deal with this facilitation of learning of the learners. In other words, if the teacher is completely away from the objectives set by the authorities, the educational authorities, it will be very difficult for him to follow the path. So he has to know where to go in order to trace the route. We cannot wait and tell him what to do within a methodology which prepares learners and teachers to be autonomous. We cannot be on in the two sides of the fence. Okay? This is just what I want to say.
Thank you very much. Now to Samir, please go ahead.
Thank you. Maybe I have two questions. One by Professor Kinish relating to table 6, starting and 7. There was no order in there in terms of ranking in terms of importance. I put 1 and 2 just randomly like that. Okay, so that's the issue. And of course, I can talk about the others. So what I did was give about 40 items from published literature, published questionnaires. And the students have to tick those elements which you think. Of course, they are, they are divided into categories. And the students have to reorder them in terms of importance. That is, this is important. There are a number of items which I left out. For example, do you think that punctuality is not important? That the teacher is audible is not at all important. Nobody takes that element. So there are aspects that were not important from the point of view of the students that I tested. And of course, maybe one issue maybe I can address later, and I think Steve would mention this one, is the gender effect. Because a number of studies, in terms of student evaluation, they found that women or females tend to rate higher teachers than males. But anyway, that's another issue. I think I have already answered this question. I can answer it. So it's to what will be a successful teacher. I think is one who would reflect on his or her teaching every time they teach. we set objectives and make sure that the learning outcomes of that course or lecture or lesson are met. They have to seek professional development to better serve his or her students. And they have to promote, if you want, active learning, student participation. I think, in short, they have to address the needs of his or her students. I think these are just briefly. Thank you. That's nice. See,
Okay, I will answer the last question, and the question that was addressed by Dr. Afkini. So I will start with the question. So Dr. Afkini said that you teach the way you were taught. So here we talk about the effect of the previous experience on the teacher. Okay, we talk about when he was a student and the recent effects. And this is one of the we can consider this as one of the variables that influence the process of teaching and learning. I will go to the last question. So in the last question there are more than two, or there is more than one question. There are lots of questions at the same time. I will answer two. You said which is the priority? Is it the autonomous learner or the reflective teacher? It is not a matter of priority, but we can talk about here when we start from the focus on the qualities here. We talk about autonomous. So the reflective teacher is aware of the importance of enabling the learners to be autonomous, as well as they should be collaborative and cooperative. And these two skills are very important at the same time. We cannot do with one without the other in our society nowadays. I will talk about which is also the priority, is a reflective teacher or a reflective learner. I think it's not a matter of priority, because here we talk about interaction. From our communicative perspective, we talk about interaction. It is not a linear communication, but there is interaction, and there are also other factors that influence the process and take it
Thank you very much, Sisha. I will make two announcements before closing today's session, not just session. Could I remind our guests to check out the hotel tomorrow before leaving the hotel, please? Another announcement is lunch is served here on site, and it is served at the place where we had the reception early today, this morning. On your behalf, I would like to thank our four speakers for their wonderful talks, and on your behalf, I would like to thank our audience for their patience, and on my behalf, I would say, Allah yahmid walidin, Allah yajazkum bi khair. See you tomorrow at 8:30.
Good morning, everybody. So we resume work this morning with the first session, where we have four presentations. The first of which is by Professor Abu Abdul Qadir. He's going to be talking about anatomizing the concept of professional development, whether it be teaching or profession. Abu Abdul Qadir. So the floor is yours. So I heard you to be really to respect time. So I'm sorry to say this, but we'll become friends once again after you have given your presentation. So the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you again this morning. You're all okay, but I'm not okay. And this is one of the signs of those who pretend to be professionals, just like myself. If you don't stress, you're not professional, I believe in that. So, as you know, my students know this. Whenever I launch into, or I start any kind of research, I have in mind, I bear in mind three basic questions. First of all, the primary question I ask is, what is it that I want to give? No, I'm just figuring, if I may say so, the question to the very title of the conference, of the colloquium. What is it that we are here for? The second question, before I answer the first, is why are we here? And the third one, logically enough, in my paper I call it anatomizing the concept professional development, and a subtitle which is whether the teaching profession. Well, Khalif Su'arafi is one of the tricks you use. Whether the teaching profession is something, I just wanted you to prompt to trigger your attention and say, what does he mean by this? What is, it's a wrong syntax, it's not, was it a question, it's simply this. Talking about the professional development necessitates some kind of consequence, outcome. And the outcome is what I exactly mean by whether the teaching profession. So what is the place, the position, the status of the teaching profession after this, talk about professionalism, professionalization, professionality, and so on. We need to define. And if we follow the discussions from yesterday up to now, I think we all would agree on one point. We have a problem in defining the concepts. It's not easy. It might be easy, سهل ممتنع. It might be easy, so you take it for granted. And I heard a critical word yesterday about critical thinking, and here comes critical thinking, my topic. Because if I don't circumscribe the thematic, I would never lead to any conclusion. So confusion is to be avoided right at the beginning. Now, what bothers me, my intellect is when once you start, you want to brainstorm this concept, professional development. You have to deal with professional development, teaching profession. What is a teaching profession? Who is, involved in those, So you never cease asking questions. And this is why I was led by, to this point, to this, finalized point about anatomizing the concept of professional development and teaching and profession. Well, it might appear, it might seem a queer choice of the word anatomizing. I'm not afraid of using this word anatomizing because I'm thinking of something ill somewhere, a deficiency somewhere. That's why I'm using this word anatomizing with the view of finding definitions and then concomitantly I would be led to conclude by recommendations. And I think a paper in this sort of encounter without recommendations, I think would remain a paper for the sake of a paper. And we are not here for the sake of a paper. We are here for the sake of finding a way out, finding an alternative, finding a solution, away from merely criticizing. To criticize is good, but find the alternative is better. So I think I have tried to first to satisfy myself with brainstorming the terms, and the very act of brainstorming the terms, the concepts, I'm led to at least to understand what I'm dealing with. And understanding the thing, perceiving it, conceiving of it, is the first step to any type of research. And there is a key word in my proposition, which is I relate this because I have to have some kind of reference. A research without reference, I would say it's not research. I would never accept it from my students. And this is, you know, the answer to the why of my paper. My paper, I think, is very needed, badly needed today, to rectify something we all are concerned about. Teaching is not simply, it's not a simple activity. It's not a simple profession. ماشي حرفة سهلة. It's not easy. So we need to understand it first. And I believe that the National Charter has failed to give it its due. I do believe in that because I read, you know, I've read some documentation, you know, and that's why you have in my abstract I say it is my topic sentence is this: the paper examines the concept of the teacher's profession and its development with reference to the findings of the HCE, Higher Council of Education, 2008 report. And here I have it with me. This is the document, and those people are better, you know, positioned to talk about this because it's based on surveys, questionnaires, and there is some kind of credibility in that. It's a report, and I can't. It's called Métier de l'enseignement. Métier de l'enseignement. Métier de l'enseignement, exactly our topic. The only thing I would say that this is not it, but I learned from it, is this question of formation continue and all these professional matters about the profession of the teacher. Is they address basically the primary, secondary schools teachers not. But, thanks God, another parameter which we need to take into consideration when talking about development, professional development, or teacher profession, or whatever, is a body, without which a university cannot be run, and that's the syndicat, union, teachers union. And I found there is an article, the proposition of the union in the document, which is very enlightening. Very helpful, because that comes from the teacher and the teacher's own vision, own view of, own way of defining him, or let me say them, this question of sexism, them themselves, okay, he and she, both. And allow me to start with it. It gives me a complete, somehow, view of the teaching profession, the profession. What does he do? Because the first one involved in this problematic is the teacher, without neglecting the student, without neglecting the, how shall I call that, stakeholders. A sign that we need to cultivate to be real professional is when you feel that, you know, you complete your paper without the Mr. President, you know, saying this. If you happen to be in the trap of this, then you are not professional at all. I agree, I follow, I'm professional. I follow good. Now, if you have it, what new missions with the advent of the reform? Now this would, very quickly, because I might skip, what new missions and tasks the teacher, researcher must fulfill? Teaching reform, new missions of teaching and teacher influence each other. First, deliver knowledge, transmitting knowledge, whatever. I'm sorry. I'm illiterate in ICT. Deliver knowledge, transmitted knowledge, etc. Consider the teaching and the education impact on the economic and social life. Pedagogical and scientific autonomy in terms of new concepts and new missions. characterized by the initiative to conceive failures, elaborate programs, continuous evaluation. In addition to that, to the traditional task, there are others, pedagogical coordination of a failure, coordination of the responsibility of a module, 5 processing of students, continuous assessment, exam. I'm tired of this. I'm tired. All are these are on the shoulders of a teacher. Say, apparently it seems that a university teacher doesn't do anything. Too much for. Too much. To accomplish this is very. Professional competencies related to the teacher's research activities, publications, scientific encounters, workshops, seminars, thesis supervision, and that is, I'm saying, a professional teacher. For a professional teacher, something which is a daily continuous training. But this would lead me, I haven't finished, there are others, a series of. This leads me to, then, what is this? What is the role of the teacher here to complete the definition of his mission, of his profession? Well, all these are problems. These are problems. Because to me, educating is finding ways out. What is it? Transmitting a mission to cure a problem, to solve a problem. You are with your teachers, be them 10 or 20 or 100. They don't know how to use their computer. What is it? It's a problem. We need to solve it. So, the pivotal function of the teacher is to find a solution. Finding a solution by doing all this. Sometimes to find a solution to a particular problem, which is our case today, we are all trying to find a solution to develop professional development. We are trying to find this. And that's our task. It's not the task of the purely, superintendent or, no, it's the task of the teacher. So the pivotal function of the teacher is to find a solution. And finding solution today and tomorrow and so on and so forth during a whole career is the very conditioning parameter towards or of professional development. The day you feel that you are competent enough, you've got the ability, you master the skill, you have the competency to sort out a problem. And the problem, because I'm going to be called for to end, and the problem is twofold. The incident is twofold. When it comes within the classroom from students, that's your stuff of professionality. You have to call for what you've learned through, not in the NS, not the CPR. That helps, but your experience to solve that pedagogical educational problem. That's one aspect. But tell me. Last week, I had a very bad incident with a teacher of mine. Well, I simply shouted at him. I shouted at him. Why did I shout at him? Because he did something. He did something. And that something is the problem. But I could not just, I could not bear it, so I just shouted at him. He was angry. Very politely, very professionally, I would say. Not civically speaking, I would say. Very professionally, because I love him, as a student. And he knows that my heart is white, as they call it. He came to me and said, وقيل أستاذ غنقول لك نقدرش نقول هلك يا أستاذ ولكن غنقدر نقولها. قال لي يا أستاذ والله إلا غنقول لك كذا حشومة عليك. قلت له علاش يا أستاذ؟ قال لي ماشي ديالك. ماشي ديالك. ما قاليش أنت راه بحال الوالد. اللي عندي فيك ثقة وأنت أستاذ. والأستاذ is not likely to, he's not allowed to. That's the sign of professionalism. Had I, behaved myself otherwise, that is to say, well, he made that mistake, looking for my repertoire, and taking from that storage, say, well, this would fit for this incident. And notice that the incident is within the classroom. I'm calling for my bagage of what I've had experience here, which lays dormant in the back of my mind. Whenever I have that kind of problem, I just take the tool and I sort it out, fine, finish, and I say, thank you, my teacher. But just 1 minute. But I have to say it. Yeah, you gave it.
I gave you more than that. I mean,
you gave it?
I gave it more.
But just one, because I don't leave it late. No, don't leave it late.
30 seconds. 30 seconds.
Less than 30 seconds. Imagine another, and that happened. Another incident. It's out of the classroom. Not with a student. With someone else. Someone from the community. Not a teacher, not a student. But it happens, it might have, well, the student was perhaps, was walking along the corridor, and I just came to him, and with the, I don't know, and I told him, why are you doing this here? I'm out of the classroom, which means that I'm not with the realm of professionality, wherein I have to call to my skills, competencies, strategies, and all that. No, I am within the realm of professionalism. My status as a teacher that conditions some very particular kind of behavior in me, some kind of attitude to be a good and beneficial, positive actor within society.
Thank you very much.
If you have any questions, I leave it to the cafeteria over there.
Can you finish by taking the minutes and ask? Thank you, Professor. Professor Abud. The next speaker is the host of the conference, Professor Mohamed Larousse. He's going to be talking about the role of professional development in curriculum development. So, Professor Larousse, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just let me know when I have 1 minute left so that I can...
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So,
I don't want to take...
Okay.
I know this topic of, or the theme of the conference is cannot be, discussed in 2-day conference, but I think it requires more than 2 days in this conference. And there is too much pressure on me now, right now, because the choice of the topic is really, let's say, triggers a lot of thought and reflection. Anyway, in this presentation, I'm going to talk about, if possible, the characteristics of, this is what I intend to do, characteristics of professional development and its role in curriculum development and the challenges to effective. But I will leave these challenges maybe to the coming presentation, because we have at least 3 or 4 presentations. One thing that should be borne in mind is that this professional development has been, as I said, has been used as a mainstream in education research. I mean, it's part of the curriculum, it's part of the in-service teacher training, it's part of curriculum development itself. So, its focus usually is on pedagogy and human development. And it has received more attention than any other, I would say, methods and other discipline in social sciences. The reason why we do this is because nothing is everlasting or permanent in the world. And given the society itself is changing, so we need to rethink and develop ourselves and redevelop even the system of education, because there is always what you call advancement. Globalization itself imposes a lot on us. And we all agree that learning is a lifelong process. I mean, you cannot stop learning because you have reached a certain, I would say, seniority in your age. I mean, if you want to lead, you need to learn. And learning is part of professional development. And I think the first thing that one has to start with is with the weaknesses. And once you identify your weaknesses, then I would say that you need to put these weaknesses are as your objectives to be attained or to be achieved. And do you know why do we focus on the negative aspects of teaching rather than the positive aspect? It's because the negative aspect have a powerful impact on us, and they have not only on teaching but also on our lives, and we try to improve whatever the weaknesses we have. Various definitions have been, I would say, allotted or assigned to professional development, and I checked on different definitions, and I had read many definitions on professional development, and I think there are as many definitions as people who try or attempt to define them, but I have chosen one that I feel it has an effect on professional development. Look at the second one. It's an ability to motivate and enable others to contribute towards effectiveness and success of an institution to which one belongs. So the institution englobes, many factors. I mean, teachers, your institution, collegiality, as many people, talked about. So professional development is the primary mechanism that schools can use to help teachers continuously learn and improve their skills over time. They can help the teaching quality, the effectiveness. They can even, I would say, reconsider the approaches, reconsider the methods, the techniques used in ELT. And I will give you examples later on about this. If you are professionally developed, I would say, or developing, so there is a possibility for you to know which method is in vogue, which is relegated to a second position, which method works and which method does not work in your context. And sometimes it's possible for you to know why one method is emerging. And I'd like to give you an example about the different, I would say, methods and approach. And sometime yesterday somebody talked about the death of a method. I would say, if you are professionally in distinction, I mean, there are, if you look back at the history of language teaching, you will find hundreds, I would say, many approaches and methods in language teaching, but it will be in a line to make the demarcation line between what you call traditional and more recent approaches. Do we take into consideration, I mean, a professionally developed teacher again, does take the slogan of education into consideration. What is the slogan of the United States? No child left behind. It means that the child is put at the center of the education system. What is the one in Morocco? What is the slogan in Morocco by the Minister of Education? المدرسة النجاح. Okay. So it's possible for you to, I would say, reflect and turn these principles into reality. It means you have to make out of in this conference, but I say no, is always put at the heart of the attention. I mean, we as teachers at the university, there is we play the role of the, let's say, in mediator between curriculum developers, decision makers, and the institution and student. It's like we go in between the institution or the Ministry of Higher Education and our students. So we need to make or to cater for the needs of our students and trying to live up to their own expectations. I mean, when we looked at different, at the character, what characterizes a teacher who is a professional teacher again? There are many, characteristics, and I'm not going to dwell on these characteristics, but I would say the one who is not, professional, who is not professional. I mean, there are many. I'm not going to dwell again on this, but the one who is not professional is not who has promotionally, I would say, financially promoted, or professionally, while his students are demoted. This is one. He is the one who is not, or who can hit the ceiling, I would say the glass ceiling, while his student did not get improved. I'd like to just give examples of what teacher professionally. A long time ago, Morocco used, I'll give you an example of what constitutes this professional development. A long time ago, Morocco adopted, let's say, British textbooks and American textbooks, in which there was a total absence of the Moroccan culture. So what happened? After a lot of reflection, the Ministry of Education, they incorporated elements of culture, of the British and the American in Moroccan textbooks. What happened again, after incorporation of the target culture in those textbooks, is that there was an underestimation of the Moroccan culture to the detriment of the American culture. If you remember what happened in the textbooks in the early 80s, that the textbook incorporated elements of the British culture. The cast of character were underestimated. The vision, like we say, Mohammed is what? He is a tailor, he is a mechanic. But when we refer to Alice, John, he is a doctor, he is an engineer, and. So, this triggered a lot of reflection, and I think this created a sort of mixed feelings towards the national, I would say, commission of the textbook designers. So there was a reconsideration of the textbook. So what happened is that at this time, they gave the Moroccan culture its due concern and its due importance. And I think this consideration, the fact of taking the Moroccan culture into consideration, has become a salient consideration in any textbook design. So, I think if teachers are marginalized in any curriculum development, this would affect even the decision, it will affect the teaching process, and the teaching, I would call it the teaching, learning, the total teaching, learning operation. Without effective contribution of teachers, their profession again, their role may be deprofessionalized. And I would agree believe that there is no curriculum development without teacher development and vice versa. And I think I keep repeating this again. I mean, the teacher is at the heart of any curriculum design. He is the one who can boost the text, the syllabus design, is the one who plays the role of a mediator between the student and the textbook designers and the curriculum developers. So curriculum, we need to negotiate the curriculum, to negotiate and then give teachers a say in the curriculum. And then we need to look at the content and the form, the content of the syllabus, and even how the curriculum should be or must be implemented. We should understand that in this era, education is a process constantly that moves from the known to the unknown. A process of change requires continual renewal and learning. And I like to say this because sometimes we delve into some unknown, I would say, unknown endeavors and tasks, and we need to find solution to these tasks. Even if you need to it's like you take the initiative. Even if you don't know the unknown, you just take the risks of getting whatever you want to achieve behind the scenes. So people involved in education should understand that we live in an era of non-stop institutional change and development. And we need to adapt our education to the needs of the job market and, after all, to the change that happen from decade to decade and year to year and another. I'm sorry. The challenges, I have 1 minute. Okay. The challenges we can describe them in 3 factors. I would say time, access, and cost. And the best way, and I would like to conclude with this remark, the best way and the most effective method and strategy for curriculum development is action research. And I think this has been claimed yesterday by Professor Wakrim, in which he said that action research, I think it is the only key to professional development. This is action research will will make you to be all the time reflective and develop your professional competence. I'm sorry because a lot of things to be said about this, and I have incorporated this professional development in the program of the master program. And for me, what I would say as the professional definition, my personal definition would be to look inward and to look for information or to look for new approaches and methods, and thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Professor Larousse, for your presentation. All right, thanks. So without any further delay, we move on to the third presenter, and that is Dr. Fatemeh and Dr. Saint. So for their joint paper entitled Perceptions of Professional Development in Higher Education. So the paper will be presented by Professor Saint. The floor is yours,
Thank you, Chairman. First, I would like to thank Professor Larousse and the organizing committee for inviting us to take part in this wonderful conference in honor of Dr. Mohammed Wakrim, who is known for his professionalism, honesty, and kindness. Whenever his name is mentioned, people would say, Allah Amrada. In brief, I would say تكريم الأستاذ وكريم هي صفة كريمة في حق رجل كريم وعظيم يستحق كل التقدير والاحترام. Thank you. Well, as you can see, the title of our presentation is Perceptions of Professional Development Among Teachers of English in a Higher Education. Well, the overview, you have, well, the objective, the methodology, discussion of the results, and then the conclusion and the recommendations. Well, no one can deny the role which professional development plays in any job, as it is one way to improve one's skills. Teaching is one of the areas in which this is badly needed, especially at the university level, where a lot of teachers join the profession without any serious training. In this regard, it has been noticed that a significant number of teachers around the world join or are underprepared for the profession. For example, in the United States, 25% of the teachers are or fall within this category. And it's worse in a number of other countries, especially developing countries. And in South Africa, for example, there is a term which is used to refer to teachers who don't have professional development or who are not licensed to work as teachers. They are called barefoot teachers. Well, I think it's a very interesting appellation which may have a number of interpretations. Now, for the objectives of the study, number one, to contribute to the ongoing debate about higher education, to elicit teachers' attitudes towards professional development, to get an understanding of the teachers' needs, and to raise our awareness about the need to continually engage in professional development activities. Now, to meet these objectives, an exploratory type of research was conducted. The data were collected by means of a structured questionnaire, which was administered to 20 teachers, and 15 respondents filled out the questionnaire. They have varied length of teaching experience. 6 of them have taught English for more than 20 years, 7 between 10 and 20, and 2 have worked for less than a decade. To analyze the data, a resort was made to descriptive statistics. The percentages were presented in diagrams. At a deeper level of the analysis, the findings were interpreted and discussed, and the main conclusions were drawn. Now, as shown in the slide, it is striking to find out that an average of 40% of the respondents has never participated in any professional development activity, bearing in mind that most of the participants, 87%, have been teaching for at least 10 years. Whereas only 13% of the participants have been teaching for less than a decade. Whereas only 13% of the participants have been teaching for less than a decade. However, at the opposite side of the continuum, another 40% of the participants report that they have benefited from professional development activities more than 4 times during their teaching experience. Along the spectrum, 13% have participated 3 times in some kind of professional development activity, and only a small proportion of the participants, 7%, has benefited only once. The respondents have a number of factors, or have advanced a number of arguments behind lack, or to justify their lack of participation in professional development. Number one, you have lack of relevant professional development activities. Number 2, conflicts with work schedule. Number 3, lack of financial support. And 4, underestimation of the benefits of professional development. An analysis of the types of professional development activities shows that most teachers engage, or in which most teachers engage, is very informative. The professional development activities frequently mentioned were informal dialogues with colleagues and workshops with a participation rate of 53% for each. Participation in conferences and seminars was also common among 40% of the participating teachers. Reading professional literature and class observation were much less features of teachers' professional development, that's 13%, and the least common type or types of professional development activities were research, courses, and qualification programs, 6%. Well, a number of reasons behind the low interest in some professional development activities can be mentioned. again, you have some kind of lack of motivation or lack of interest or some kind of demotivation, lack of financial support, and there is preference for professional development activities that require, seems, the lowest level of effort, like informal dialogues and to some extent workshops. Number 4, we have more structured and formal professional development activities such as research, courses, and qualification programs that have received little attention. To get a deeper understanding of the issues at hand, the respondents' perceptions of the impacts of professional development were also elicited. It was found that 13% of the respondents viewed the impact of professional development as being small. Close to half of the respondents reported that the impact was moderate. Those who perceived the impact as being large constituted 40%. Well, to justify their stance, a number of arguments also here were advanced. Now, for those who opted for a small kind of impact, their main argument is that those activities are irrelevant, they are limited. Those who view the impact of being moderate very simply view it as being some kind of self-satisfaction. And here I have a quote of one of the respondents. He said, or she said, "When I compare myself to those who have never had any training, I feel proud of what they have acquired through professional development." And also we have insights on other teachers' experiences. Now the last category, those who mentioned the large impacts, view professional development activities as being opportunities to exchange ideas and to improve and better satisfy the needs of their students. One of the respondents said, "These activities have had the main advantage of raising my awareness that teaching is a learning opportunity." It has also been noticed that there are 4 levels of satisfaction, and many of the respondents are dissatisfied with professional development. Well, we have 47% of the respondents had some kind of low satisfaction. And as far as the reasons of their dissatisfaction, we can state that the first category of the respondents with a high satisfaction believes that through professional development, one can improve his or her teaching skills and get feedback about his or her work. In this regard, one of the respondents made the following statements. "These are," I quote, "these are activities that have contributed greatly to my improvements as a teacher. The more I engage in such activities, the more aware I become of the aspects in my teaching that need improvement." End of quote. Those respondents with a moderate satisfaction attribute their judgment to the fact that professional development activities are oftentimes irrelevant and infrequent. This means that they view them as being useless, especially when they do not match their interest. Given this state of affairs, one of the respondents has gone to the extent of saying that real practice is the best factor. Of course, you may agree or disagree. Similarly, the respondents with a low satisfaction or no satisfaction attribute their stand to the scarcity of training opportunities and their irrelevance. And the following figure represents the percentages of teachers reporting in a descending order the various aspects for which they have a high level of need. Across the 15 participating teachers, the areas for which teachers say they need professional development are teaching methods, followed by ICT, and then testing methods. Less frequently, subject field, student discipline, and class management are also reported as areas in which they need professional development. Now, a significant proportion of the teachers perceives teaching or teaching methods as the main area that deserves the special attention. 50% of the participants rated their professional development need in relation to these aspects as very high. Undoubtedly, this result is very revealing. It indicates that most teachers recognize the need to improve their professional skills and knowledge and the need to satisfy their students' needs. A sizable proportion of the teachers also reported that having a high level of need, or reports having a high level of need for ICT, 17%, and testing methods, 17%. The need for professional development in relation to ICT could be reflects the speed of the technological changes which teachers need to keep pace with, teachers' aspiration to exploit the new technology for the benefits of teaching and learning, and surprisingly, a similar proportion of the participants consider testing methods as an area in which there is a need. This choice derives its legitimacy from the fact that through assessment procedures, a decision is made to pass or fail a student. Via assessment, a given teacher can test the efficiency of his or her teaching methods and or materials. However, the percentage of teachers who wanted professional development in relation to subject field only constitutes 8%. The interpretation of this finding cannot be clear-cut and should be taken with some kind of caution because given the very low value attributed to this highly significant aspect. However, it may indicate that most teachers feel they are already well prepared to teach their specialty. Surprisingly, the aspects which were less frequently reported as a high development need are student discipline 4% and class management 4%. These percentages may reflect the fact that students low importance attributed to this area for teachers' work and some teachers' underestimation of the problems that may arise from poor classroom management. Well, for the last item was, should professional development be compulsory for university teachers? There is general consensus, in fact 100% of the respondents. There is a consensus among the teachers that professional development should be compulsory for a number of reasons. Now, we have recruitment of university teachers is usually done or is often done without some kind of pre-service training. One of the respondents said, I believe that professional development is crucial for any ALT professional and the higher education teachers are no exception. It is particularly useful for teachers who did not have any pre-service training. And you have number two, to update one's skills and knowledge about teaching. And you have lack of innovation. And one of the respondents mentioned this issue and it was stressed, and he or she said, I cannot concur more the view, the quality of teaching and absence of motivation on the part of teachers and students alike. There are teachers who have changed into best students in their own classes. They lack in innovation and keep traditional techniques of teaching. Professional development in this respect should be a necessity for advancement. And then you have knowing one's subject does not mean being a good teacher. And one of the respondents said, if a teacher stays or starts from scratch, it is a must. Therefore, in this case, professional development is a must. If he starts after a kind of training, he knows its value and wants to go on. And one of the reports of the respondents justified his or her stand by a hadith. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said in Arabic, ما يزال الرجل عالما ما تعلم فإن ظن أنه علم فقد جهل. As a conclusion, the paper has tried to discuss the teachers' attitudes towards professional development. The results indicate that many teachers mentioned their involvement in a number of professional development activities, and they showed preference to the ones in the form of informal dialogues with colleagues, workshops, conferences, and seminars. Also, most teachers made it clear that professional development activities have influenced their development as teachers. Moreover, they stressed the need to give top priority to areas like teaching methods, testing, and the use of technology. Given the importance of professional development, all the respondents supported the need to make it compulsory for university teachers. On the basis of the aforementioned discussions, we would like to make the following recommendations. There is a strong need for, number one, raising teachers' awareness about the importance of professional development. 2, pre-service training for future university teachers. 3, including teacher professional development as a component in any educational reform. 4, motivating teachers to engage in in-service training. 5, encouraging class observation and feedback provision among faculty. And 6, more research on development and needs and preferences. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot, Professor Tu, for being very professional and delivering within the allocated time. So next speaker is Dr. Hassan Bouzid. He's going to be talking about textbook evaluation as a reflective practice. Okay? The floor is yours, Doctor.
Okay, good morning everyone. First I would like to start by thanking the organizing committee of the second International Conference on Professional Development and Reflective Thinking for giving me this opportunity to present my paper on textbook evaluation as reflective practice. So the presentation consists of the following elements. First, I will start with the thesis statement and the rationale. Then I will move to some assumptions about textbook evaluation. And after that, I will be talking about comparing characteristics of passive and active textbook evaluation. Then I will be talking about some requirements for reflective textbook evaluation. And after that, I will suggest how we can conceptualize and implement a reflective practice model for textbook evaluation, and then I will talk about ways in which we can share the findings. And as a conclusion, I will try to show how this model enhances teachers' professional development. So in this paper, I will argue that reflective textbook evaluation can improve the quality of learning outcomes and foster professional development of high school teachers of English if it is performed within the formal context of in-service training, where teachers work collaboratively to promote learning. The rationale behind this paper is that it is kind of paradoxical to say that textbooks remain the most widely used teaching material by English language teachers in Moroccan high schools, while in fact textbook evaluation is oftentimes given little room in pre-service and in-service teacher training programs. In fact, research proves that conducting a systematic textbook evaluation in a professional collaborative fashion can be conducted to professional development that boosts the quality of learning outcomes. We have some assumptions about textbook evaluation. The first is that all teachers are concerned with textbook evaluation since there are no perfect textbooks. There exists limitations of content, approach, methodology, language, audiovisual aids, text, cultural bias, social bias, to name but a few in each textbook. These issues can effectively be overcome if teachers avoid being passive in their evaluation and indulge in a more active textbook evaluation. But the difference between these two types of evaluation is what determines the success of textbook being used. So, what is a passive textbook evaluation? It uses an impressionistic approach. It is intuitive, and it is teacher-centered, and it is far from theory, and it does not have clear objectives, and it is discontinuous in terms of time. Its findings and its process are not recorded. Thus, I believe that such kind of evaluation cannot or can hardly foster professional development, since there is very little learning taking place. On the other hand, you can see that active textbook evaluation adopts an in-depth approach, and it is done in a collective, systematic, and reflective way. It is learner-centered, and its practices are directly driven from theory. It sets goals, and it is goal-oriented, and it is iterative in process. Both its process and its products are recorded, and hence I think that such model really fosters professional development because teachers reflect and learn upon their, and learn from their practice and from their peers. So a shift to active in-depth evaluation is highly recommended. The requirements, but for this, conducting active textbook evaluation requires teachers to grasp basic knowledge of methods and approaches of textbook evaluation. They are also required to be able to link theory of language teaching and learning to practices of textbook evaluation. Also, they should be willing to collaborate with their colleagues and share their successes and failures and learn from feedback that they get from their peers and be ready to change their practices for better enhancing the learning outcomes of their students. This can be done through the collection of evidence of what a good learning experience is and what a bad learning experience is. Right? So the reflective textbook model or the reflective textbook evaluation model that we suggest relies on the assumption that reflective textbook evaluation links theory to action, right, to improve both teachers' practices and students' learning outcomes. This can be done through three main stages. The first stage is that of reflection in action. In this stage, teachers should be able to think on their feet while they are performing the action, while they are teaching, and collect evidence of successful and unsuccessful experiences. The second stage is that of reflection on action, which starts right after the action has been completed, after the teaching comes to an end. And then they reflect, in this stage, they reflect on the collected evidence by linking practice to theory and identify problems and suggest alternatives. The third stage is that of reflection for action, where teachers plan future actions on the basis of what they have found from the first two stages and try to anticipate problems that may face them in future courses or in future teaching. So the framework, this model can be applied in a framework, and I believe that workshops and pedagogical meetings and conferences, study days and seminars, I believe them to be ineffective professional contexts because they are isolated and they are single isolated events. They are limited in time and they give very little room for interaction and exchange of formative feedback from the audience. The alternative framework that I suggest is that of an in-service teacher training, in which teachers create many small learning communities that focus on textbook evaluation and schedule regular meetings to evaluate various textbook areas and plan short-term objectives for each meeting and long-term goals for the general or for the whole program. And these objectives should be directed to enhancing or generating better learning outcomes. Also, within these meetings, with an exchange of effective practices of textbook evaluation between teachers is highly recommended. Also, this framework allows us to invite experts to demonstrate how textbook evaluation can serve to increase students' learning. This model can be put into practice, and to put it into practice, participants are invited to reflect on how to evaluate textbooks in order to improve students' achievement and identify various problems that hinder learning in textbooks and review relevant literature to overcome identified deficiencies in the textbook and test if new practices of textbook evaluation improve learning outcomes. They should also keep record of successful and unsuccessful learning experiences so that they could reflect on why some experiences failed to enhance students' learning. So at the end of the program, the findings should be shared in order to reach a larger or wider audience of teachers, and this can be done through or by organizing platforms such as conferences, workshops, study days and seminars, where representatives or reporters of different learning communities meet to report and discuss their findings about textbook evaluation. They should also devise guidelines for teachers nationwide on how to evaluate textbooks more effectively. We should also design CDs, DVDs, websites and booklets containing materials that teachers can use to supplement textbooks, or materials that students can use to improve their learning performances independently when they are not in class using these textbooks. Also, we should suggest problematic areas to the researchers for further investigation. So those areas of textbook evaluation which could not be solved by mere meetings in the learning community should be suggested to researchers who are interested in the field, and also make recommendations for textbook designers, in order to inform future material design, so that we, in the future, we avoid the problems that we have in these in the textbooks, and maybe we will have new problems in the future textbook. But the important thing is that we should not actually repeat the same mistakes, right? In conclusion, this model, I believe that this model gears professional development because it is learner-centered, as it builds on prior knowledge and cultural background of both students and teachers. Also, it promotes active, self-directed lifelong learning. It is also knowledge-centered because it supports planning and strategic thinking that develop new knowledge. It also leads to understanding and transfer of knowledge between teachers and members of the same community or within the network of communities. It is also assessment-centered in that it provides opportunity for feedback and revision, so teachers get feedback from each other and allows them to revise their own practices. It also promotes self-assessment, peer assessment, formative assessment, summative assessment, and performance-based assessment. Also, it is community-centered in that it promotes collaborative learning via open dialogue and sharing of expertise. It also allows exchanging of successful and unsuccessful exchange of only successful practices between members of the same learning community. And thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Hassan. It was it, so your respected time, and you made my life a lot easier. So our next speaker and the final speaker in this panel is Professor Ehad Khezi. Professor Khezi is going to be talking about English for business purposes and evaluation of textbook and learners' performance. Okay, Professor Khezi, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Larousse, for this nice opportunity. Thanks for the audience. I hope they are quite calm so they can listen to me. Okay. So my topic, as you can see, is English for business purposes. It's an evaluation of the textbook and learner performance. This study is in a way a study of a practitioner because I'm a teacher and I'm also a practitioner. That is, I teach in English school. Is it? And this is an empirical study, given that I'm working there for years now, and we have Mr. Hammoudi here. He's the coordinator of English studies here, okay, with me. So the work is that we are trying to adopt a model in language teaching, but in business English teaching. I know that maybe it's not covered for students at the faculty to think about business English, but it's becoming now like a very interesting field of work and field of study. So the first objective of my study is that I need to give like a focused idea about what you call professional needs of management students when they are studying business English in general. And the second one is that I'm here not as a theoretician but as a practitioner. That is, I would like to propose, if you like, a model of language teaching, but it's teaching of business English in general. The model that I call an integrated model. I have adopted this in while teaching the subject of language teaching at the faculty in Al Jadida. I think it works, but I hope that you can give me some comments by the end so that we can develop this model that I call the integrated model in language teaching. The third objective is to establish like an authentic practice reality research where we can theorize from the classroom, because I believe that we can start from the classroom. We cannot start from books, but it's the classroom that tells us what to do and how to do it. Okay. The last one is like to provide new insights for learners to develop critical thinking, management styles, and lifelong learning skills required through modern financial and technological advancement, workplace, and the global economy. That is, the objectives that you have as students here at the faculty that are quite different from the objectives that students of business have, because for them, they need to work in companies, they need some special business English, but after all, they need to find a job, okay? Of course, before I studied this work, it's like I have tried to consult what's called the pre-course needs analysis. As you can see, a lot of research has been done, but the first one that is taken into consideration is that English is regarded as a lingua franca. And you know, when you talk about lingua franca, you are talking about business English as just a means of communication in commerce. Research, however, has been conducted mostly on business communication skills, but today the model I would like to propose is not just to develop communication skills, but to develop a model for teaching. That is, I'm not here to tell teachers how to teach, but I'm telling students how they should be taught business English in general. Well, some of the case studies that have been undertaken before, you can see that the three main work studies or research papers that have been done before, it's one in a textile company in Hong Kong, the other one is like about senior German bankers, and in Singapore accountants. As you can see, it's like two domains, one in textile and the other one is like in finance. So these case studies, they are just worked on these two fields, okay? So when you see what we call the task-based needs analysis, it means that we are talking about teaching English or business English, not theoretically speaking, but we are talking about activities in class, because the classroom when we teach, that is where we teach business English, is not any classroom. It's like a classroom where first students are very demanding, okay? But the problem that they have is that these students, they don't have enough time to listen to the teacher. They would like to participate in activities because they have like to develop a lot of skills, all the skills, the 4 skills that you know, okay? Well, when we talk about the evaluation of the textbook that is used in this school, which is called AZ, is Mathclear. And by the way, nobody is telling us to use Mathclear. We have chosen this book because of its relevance to the domain of business. But let us take a look. So I would like you just to remember this content design. So it starts like this. That is, you have like a lot of books according to the proficiency level, starting from the elementary to pre-intermediate, then to intermediate. But maybe I would say the mistake, but I cannot dare even to say the mistake, because this is a British book, it's not a Moroccan one. It's British people, they are writing for us. So the content design starts like this. It is every unit, when we teach these units to students, you find that there is a discussion first, then vocabulary, then language work, then skills, then reading, then a case study. It's like a lesson plan. It has to go through all this process, just if you can remember. Now, when we talk about the curriculum model, of course we are talking about, at least we have to respect this, the focuses of the curriculum model, that is the situational analysis, the learning outcome, the way the course is organized or selected or prepared, and the evaluation. Now, The research starts in here. It's like now I'm trying to take you directly to a given classroom. I'm not theoretician as I told you, so I'm taking you to a class where you can leave this experience at least for 5 or 10 minutes. Okay? So the participants here, they are from 3 departments. As you can see, the first one is from clothing production management. Some 40 students were asked to complete the questionnaire. And there is another one which is hygiene, security and development, and the third one which is e-logistics. But the second and third one, they are master classes, not professional licence or BA. Now, the background that is, as you can see, the classroom we are about to enter is a semi-private textile and logistics class. It's not any class, it's specific, that is, they have objective to be managers in at least one of these domains that is clothing production, textile production. They have also purchasing, they have other departments, but the school, it started like this. That's why it is called ESET, that is École Supérieure de l'Industrie du Textile Alimentaire. Okay? So the students that we have here, it's like they are not advanced learners. They are students that have minimal survival English proficiency. And you know what does mean minimal? It's like you students when you came here, when you came here for the first time, okay? When you got just your baccalaureate. So remember that time with that level that you had. So our students, they are still in that level, if you like. Okay. The second one is a whole language course that aims to reinforce the 4 skills. And when we say a whole language course, it means that we are not trying to develop, that we are not teaching them linguistics or whatever. We are teaching them how to use the language in different business contexts. Okay. So even that is, the teacher is supposed to respect this. But nobody is telling us, nobody is inspecting us. Like at the faculty, we do what we think is needed by our students. Okay? Third one is you see that the textbook as well, the task-based activities were developed in various areas. That is the units that we have in the book. They have they deal with companies, marketing, purchasing, stress, and managing people. So these are different domains. But when we deal with these units, we find that the feedback of students is a little bit very poor in domains like what? Like stress and managing people. Because for them, they are very pragmatic students. They don't like to be taught anything because any time you ask them to do, or it's like you plan an activity for them, they ask you what for. So it means that they study things that they need. If they don't need it, so it's like you are wasting their time. So this is, I don't know whether you do this at the faculty, but my students, they do it in language teaching. When I'm teaching them the subject of language teaching, sometimes they ask me this question. Do we need to know this? Do we need to know about, for instance, intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation? And that's fine. When students, they are developing the syllabus with the teachers. It's more learner-centered than teacher-centered for me. Okay, so the research I have just divided into 2 main items so that just can save time. So the first one is problems. Then we have what we call interests and needs. The problems. Look at the problems. Maybe you can share some of these problems. I'm talking to students, okay? Sometimes you find that the textbooks or the units in the textbooks are irrelevant, but you cannot change it. You cannot tell your teacher that the units are not relevant. The teaching method, of course, a lot of speakers here, they talked about the teaching method. For me, the teaching method, you can inspire it from your students. It's not from what you read, etc. Third one is third box, upper boxes. So third one, it tells you about the difficulty of business English vocabulary. Because for them, they are in industry, they are in production, so they don't need to know about finance. For them, it's useless to study what you call finance and marketing. The fourth one, the lower cases, okay, lower boxes, you have demotivating classroom. And here it's the responsibility of the teacher. So when you say that there is a demotivating classroom environment, it means that maybe the teacher is not good enough. Although we cannot say that there is a bad teacher and a good teacher, but I would say that the teacher is intelligent enough, he can create this atmosphere, this context for his students so that they can learn. Because it's like all the time we believe that we are not teaching the language, we are creating the conditions for it to be taught in general. Okay? Now, foreign languages use, you'll ask the question, what do you mean by foreign languages? We are teaching English. So foreign languages, Arabic and French. For them, when you design for a group work, you'll find that all the time they are doing it in Arabic, but they perform it in English. So what's the point if they are using these foreign languages used? Before I came here, I taught my students just last Tuesday about this. I told them, please give me hints how to avoid using Arabic in group work when you are teaching English. And some of them, they are teaching. They told me it's very difficult and it's very challenging question that we cannot afford answers for. And the last one, when you say foreign language use in group work, and you have the TTT, that is the teacher's talking time. In general, in management schools, students, they don't like to listen to the teacher. They would like that the teacher listens to them and corrects any mistakes, etc. It's not like other faculty, we lecture all the time, and sometimes students, they get bored because we lecture. We're not giving them this opportunity. This is what I'm doing this year. I'm adopting this model, the model that I will talk about. I'm adopting this at the faculty, and I've seen that my students in Essex, they're about to leave the university, but with no communicative competence. That is, they are not good at communication. That is, if you ask them to sit for a job interview, they find difficulties to answer some questions, even with their BA. Okay. The interests and needs. Okay, I have to be quick now. So they are a little bit. These are some of the interests of these students. They like uncontrolled tasks. That is no interference of the teacher. They like to talk about debates, working on projects, etc. But one of the items that I have tried with Mr. Hamouti is that we asked them last year, to write their end of study project, what they call PFE, that is like a project. But we asked some students to write it in English, because it's not common that students in Moroccan management schools to write the end of study project in English, because in general they write it in French. Okay, but we are trying to elaborate on this. Okay. I'll go direct to the model, if you don't mind, Mr. Aziz. If you want that I take you in my car today, otherwise you take the train. Okay. So the integrative syllabus, as you can see, I go directly to number one. So the syllabus that I'm trying to propose is that we have any syllabus, at least in business English, it has to take into consideration the three items, that is concept, context, and creativity. Okay? So if we take the three items, like in this lesson plan, for instance, if you take the activity to remember, I told you to remember the first okay, overview. Look at the activity now. You start by exploring the notion that functions. That is, you tell them about the concepts, whatever. It's marketing, logistics, anything. But you start with this. It's like this is what you try to do. Because what we call the attention span, that is, the time when they are concentrated is the first 20 minutes or half an hour. After this, they are lost. So after this, they should work. So at this time, you have to operate. After this, so question of space and timing. So the second one, I call it the icebreaker. So when you talk about the icebreaker, it's like you give your students a context where they can, they can express themselves. I have done this. I gave a girl like 5 minutes. She was talking about herself, her experience, and she was crying for 5 minutes, speaking good English, but with her tears, with tears in her eyes. The third one is creativity. After we adopt this concept and context, I think that Moroccan, that is in general management students, they like to be creative by the end of the course. They would like to see whether they have acquired enough so that they can do it in reality. Okay, so just to finish with this, just 1 more minute, please. Okay, so this integrated model, I have adopted 3 items. The first one that I call integration of skills. That is, first, the integration of skills. For instance, suppose that you are just planning a group work. The first thing that you need to do is you have to invite everyone, because sometimes in group work, just the best ones are invited. The low proficient learners, they are not invited. So they feel that they are the wrong side in there. So that is, you invite them. Second one, you believe in them. What this means to believe is that you listen to them, because they are listening to you all the time. If you believe in them, what they are saying, and take it into consideration, they believe in you, and they will believe in what you are teaching them. In every field, this one, it works. Okay? Of course, if you do this, you will involve them. Second one, it's the integration of needs. That is, for me, the syllabus, it starts from the needs. The needs, they explore the syllabus, or vice versa. Also, the syllabus, it can explore the needs. That is, here, students in this school, they need to be, for instance, to involve activities like negotiations, like concluding deals, because there is a department there, they are in purchasing. Their job is to be managers in purchasing, so they need to know how to negotiate in English, okay? Just the last one, okay, last slide. Okay, the integration, what you call the integration of team communication. So identify, invest, and integrate. Identify is like when you give them a group work, when you want to involve them in any team communication, you have to identify what you are doing and tell them why you are doing it. Because if you don't tell them this, it will be like a half-hour waste of time. So tell them, identify the problem, what they are supposed to do. Second one, you invest. What does it mean to invest? It's like some students, they have problems. So it's like we had some Turkish students, as if you remember, at the faculty, and they left. Yeah, they left. Why? Because we did not, as teachers, we did not invest in their problem, because they had like problems with Arabic and French, etc. But nobody cared at that time. Okay, so I think this way we will integrate. We'll have this integrative model, and even in language teaching, that is not just in business English teaching. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Precis. At least I guarantee the fact that I will not have to take a break. Okay, so we'll take a question. Well, let's see.
I just have a comment about to Professor Chou, and one comment and a question to Mr. Alouzi. Professor Chou talked about one suggestion that your respondents made regarding professional development. They stressed the fact that maybe professional development should be compulsory. I'm not really sure I would agree with you in that respect. I think that for professional development to be effective and for teachers to be motivated to benefit from it, there is a strong need for an anxiety-free kind of atmosphere. So maybe we could talk about professional development as being desirable, or maybe faculty members should be motivated one way or another to take part in professional development. The word compulsory, that is a bit strong. I don't think that people will be motivated to engage in that. My comment about the paper that Mr. Alouzi has given, the comment is that you were talking about textbook evaluation as a means to professional development, and I totally agree with you there. There are many ways that you could develop professionally. One way to do it is to evaluate textbooks. I guess that you were talking about the context of high school. I assume that you were talking about that, and you could have made this clear. But I believe that textbook evaluation could also be practiced as a means through which professional development could be achieved in higher education. Of course, in higher education, we don't talk about textbooks, we talk about course packs, course books. But definitely we have material that we use to teach classes. Reflecting on that material that we use in high school, at the university level, could also be a means to professional development. That was my comment. My question is, you talked about a model and you talked about learning communities, teachers working collaboratively. To what extent do you think that teachers would be willing to take part in that undertaking and to join learning communities? From your experience and from your discussions with informal discussions with your colleagues.
Thank you very much. Next,
sorry for
question.
So, yeah. But you spoke about something like barefoot teachers. I understood from your definition of the term, your comments on the term, is that, I mean, this refers to teachers who have never put themselves in the shoes of teachers before. Okay, that is, they never received any pre-service training, I mean, to be future teachers. Well, according to me, I think that there is no such thing as a barefoot teacher. Because we have always been, throughout our school years, I mean, we have always been taught by teachers. And those teachers have left certain prints on us, I mean, as future teachers. So we never start from scratch. I personally feel that I have been influenced in my professional career by my previous teachers. So some of those influences were positive, and some were negative, of course. And I worked on both of them, correcting the negative influences and working on the positive ones. So I mean, paying for teachers, I mean, is something that I don't think exists. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Mshai.
My question is addressed to Professor Khattu, who I look forward to learning from as one of his interest areas is assessment. Well, in your interesting study, you said, surprisingly, one area in which teachers indicated the need for professional development is testing, which involves the decision to pass and fail students. Don't you think that it is high time we transform the function of assessment from the decision to pass and fail students, or from summative assessment to forming the competencies of the learners? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Many thanks to the presenters for their insightful presentations. I'm going to go, or just I'm going to quote, "What I do is not who I am, and who I am is not what I do." This is a quotation inspired by Chris Gardner, who inspired the movie Pursuit of Happiness. So the question here, what's the difference between profession and career? If we could demystify this one, we would really understand what we mean by professional development. Because I don't have time, I'm not going to do that. That was a question addressed to the panel. Number two, we've got the issue of professional development. Is it not related to personal development? Does not fit in this context, because people now are seeking life skills, soft skills. Even teachers need soft skills. Because of the technology now, people are growing deficient in those skills, and what is needed is that. So, teaching itself, the profession as a teacher, needs to be redefined. In the past, probably the idea of knowledge and mastery of content was dominant. Later, probably the doing becomes dominant, and now the being. So we have know your discipline content and theories of learning, knowing the approaches, and being. And it seems that being is getting greater as a need in our time today. So is the issue of personal development not really pertinent to personal development, not pertinent to professional development? Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Next is...
Let's add another one. And the Japanese slogan, it says, we rely on the Japanese discipline, the science and skills of the West, and morals of the East. I have two remarks. The first one is that the slogan itself traces the roots of education, Japanese education, discipline, skills, science and technology, and morals. The second remark is that they globalize their education, which means that they don't rely on Japan, they don't rely only on Japan. They get what Japan needs in order to go forward. So I just would like to have your demand on this. And another question to the man who would like to escape by train. Right. Yahya. You said the best method is the method we grasp from the classroom. But all along your lecture, you speak of a universal method. Because when you say concept and then icebreaker, It's what we generally call warming up. And then creativity. Don't you think that a motivated teacher is the one who teaches the way you would like to be taught? This is the question. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
The method, approach, pedagogy that determines how successful and professional developed a teacher is. If not the case, what are the other aspects to be involved in the professional development, since the word method still repeated around here? From yesterday, today we still hear the word method and ICTs in professional development. Is it necessarily the method or approach of pedagogy which determines how the teacher is successful or professional development? Thank you so much.
Okay, so we'll take more questions, but let me first, because I need to have your say in.
You see, you might remark that ICT sometimes stands for a hindrance. It becomes an obstacle for the real deliverance of the message. I react directly to the question or to the seeking for the clarification of profession, career. And I think that has been for the last, I'm concerned with the teacher at university, the university teachers, tertiary stuff. For the last 5 years, or since the advent of the reform, which has been somehow problematic, there has been a term, a qualification, whatever you want to call it, other than profession, career, and naming the qualification of the teacher researcher as mustakhdam. That's another thing, and that will lead another discussion. But I would react immediately and practically, pragmatically to your question. We have the same souci. Before profession, career, I would lead you to think and rethink two things. The grade, the evaluation for promotion grade, and I have it here as part of my paper. What is it that? What is it? Just look at it, I don't have time to. The grade, I hope you are aware. I believe that teachers are aware of what I'm talking about. But the students, I don't know. It evaluates the student, the teacher. What does it evaluate? The teacher's professionalism, professionalization, the professional career, what does it say now? And the other thing, to give you a full view of, to your questioning, is the CV, curriculum vitae, and the components of the curriculum vitae. If I were to summarize, to give you an idea about the components of the two things, these are how we are measured. And the two leads us to think of, or to rethink who we are as university teachers. Do they weigh our professionalism? The grade, for example, does it deal with how much, what point on the scale we are? Or it is the status, simply the status, that's therefore the career. You are Professor Renana, you are Professor Pezana, you are Professor Pezana, you are Professor, that's that. What does it weigh? And then the other thing, and I would like to take, this is very crucial. Let's not make it too. Please, I would beseech you. I would beseech you.
We have a right.
No, we still have. We will beseech you. What I think this is one of the things that I would be brief, we work under frustration at all levels. That's the motto. I have recommendations. This is why I'm here. No, I did allow you the time you want.
We have the time to have feedback.
No, but this is without which. No, it's not. I wouldn't agree because I have to. I traveled a long distance heavily with the Tuareg to come here. So, no. Give the floor to them. Who we are. And there are recommendations upon which, which determine what life has for store to us in the future as university teachers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I think we have to think globally, but act locally. And I think it's the same as globalization. Globalization, in fact, imposes a lot of things on us, and it has influenced not only many, I would say, spheres, but also the education system. So we have to take what is important, what is crucial for us, what is beneficial for us, and then we have to keep. We cannot deny and dissociate what will be our identity. Our identity, the Moroccan identity, cannot be ignored in this process of globalization. And I think when I come back to professionalism and career, I think both are, separate. When I say المهنة, تنقول مهنة جامعي, تستاذ جامعي بالفعل المهنة اللي أستاذ جامعي. But for me, I would say what you do is professional. ولكن أنا شو دير خدمت داخل الوسط الجامعي هذاك هذا تتحدد شنو البروفيشناليزم. So you are a teacher. شحال ما نقول لك أنا أستاذ جامعي ومن بعد. Okay, what you do inside your institution will determine your professionalism. And then when I say part, personal is part of professional development. We say if you don't know, I would say personal development is part of professional development. You cannot improve professionally if you do not improve personally. And we can discuss other issues. In the meantime, I would like to stop because of time constraint. And thank you. We'll discuss it over the next. Thank you very much.
Well, our attitudes and our culture. Why is it compulsory for high school teachers? Therefore, being a good researcher or an excellent or an expert in your specialty does not guarantee being a good teacher. Of course, I understand that training is not a guarantee that you'll be a good teacher, but at least it's going to make life easier for a number of people if they are motivated and they want to learn. Number two, the issue of Dr. Al-Eid about paying for teachers. Well, you view the appellation as being somebody who is not putting issues by other people. There's another way of looking at it. Maybe, especially the term is used in Africa. Imagine yourself walking in a place, a mountain or a desert, without your shoes. I know it's very hard. That's one way of looking at it, which is a question about assessment, passing or failing students. Of course, as we know, assessment is not just used to pass or fail students. It's a means to get an idea about what we are doing, our methods, our materials. But unfortunately, we have sometimes these assessments, as Dr. Butar, in one of the MACE conferences, he said, assessment sometimes is viewed as assessment, and it's a means to take revenge sometimes. Therefore, it's very important to have assessment for learning and assessment of learning. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Dr. Right? So thank you for the question. It's interesting, but I think that you missed one of the points at the very first slide is that I mentioned the context where textbook evaluation takes place is high school. I clearly specified that. All right. Right. For your question, to what extent do teachers engage in such in-service training, textbook evaluation? I think that research that has been presented before yesterday and today has shown that there are always two kinds of teachers, and it includes those who are reluctant to change, right, and those who hold negative ideas towards professional development. So these will not attend such meetings and will not adhere to such communities. But I think that the majority of teachers have a clear incentive and a motivation which stems an intrinsic motivation because they face problems within
their own classroom with the textbooks. So they would like to engage in a certain context which would allow them to actually solve these problems and enhance their practices and promote their learners' outcomes. There is also a second extrinsic motivation is that nowadays we notice that the textbooks can be designed by teachers nationwide. So I think that they would be ready to learn how to evaluate textbooks so that they would learn how to design and to avoid problems in future textbooks. So I think that we have two kinds of motivation that really can help teachers or can push teachers to get involved in such programs. And don't forget that also the delegation or the academy can give certificates asserting that the teacher has undergone or has taken such training in textbook evaluation. So I think that we have the incentives needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Casey.
Okay, thank you. Concerning the question of Mr. Amzian, my friend. Well, look, in Morocco, maybe it's different from Algeria. In Morocco, people, they would like to find a job. Okay. The question concerning the method, I mean, it's the same question, but I will answer it in one way. Sometimes I ask my students to work on language teaching. That is, in the questionnaire, they ask teachers and the faculty about what is the teaching method that you are adopting. Can you guess what is the teacher's answer? I'm not using any method. Meaning that it's not the teacher, it's not the method that makes a successful teacher, but I would say it's a successful teacher who can make a theory work and be alive for a long time. Because now we can now maybe in 1 year or 2 years we can think about Mr. Laroux's rethinking method. Okay, it should work. It should work in practice. But if it doesn't, it will be a dying method. So there are a lot of dying methods, so nobody is using them. So I think it depends all of it on the teacher and how he is using all of it. The classroom management, classroom materials, everything, all the environment, so that he succeed in his job, which is teaching. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry to announce that round 2 cannot take place by time constraints, so I'm ready to take the punches. Some of the students have already thrown at me, so we will have to stop. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, that's how it goes. I'm sorry, I'm ready to take the criticism. I haven't been mad at that. Thank you. So the break is right here, so make it 10 minutes.